you from beautiful Northwest Montana. It's time for the Mary Todd Show. And here's your host, Mary Todd.
Hello, everybody. Today is a great day of celebration. Our first podcast that we ever did on the Mary Todd Show was with our J6 moms and our J6 wife, Carrie, and with our moms, Mary and Eureka. And today, their loved ones are home. We are so thrilled. Now, Mary's on a tight schedule. Luke, actually, who we heard all about on J6, is home with his wife, Carrie, now. He's the one with the 8 children. And Eureka has her son, Patrick, home with her as well. We're so excited. I'm going to introduce you, but first we have a word from our president, Donald J. Trump.
Vacancy known as Doge.
Okay, that's a big one.
Is Elon Musk going to get a West Wing office?
No, he's getting an office for about 20 people that we're hiring to make sure that these get implemented. We have a problem in this country. You sign an executive order, it doesn't get done for 6 months. As an example, when we allow the J6 hostages to go out, it might not be approved under the old days for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months. You know, they had a good ruling from the Supreme Court, and it's like nothing happened. That ruling was 6 months ago, you know that. And it was like they didn't have a ruling. They've been treated very unfair. The judges have been absolutely brutal. The prosecutors have been brutal. Nobody's ever treated people in this country like that.
Mr. President, are you commuting the sentences of anyone who assaulted a police officer on January 6th?
Well, we're looking at 2 police officers, actually, that Washington police officers who went after an illegal, and things happened and they ended up putting them in jail. They got 5-year jail sentences. You know the case. And we're looking at that in order to give them we got to give them a break.
But is there clemency in your actions today for anyone?
Well, it would be a part. That would be a part. The one I'm talking about would be a part of it.
Should there be punishment for the people who assaulted law enforcement officers that day?
Well, I will say this. They've been in jail for a long time already. I see murderers in this country get 2 years, 1 year, and maybe no time. So they've already been in jail for a long time. These people have been destroyed. What they've done to these people is outrageous. There's rarely been anything like it in the history of our country. And even people that were aggressive, and in many cases, I believe they happen to be outside agitators, but what do I know, right? But I think they were outside agitators. There were outside agitators involved. And obviously the FBI was involved because Ray admitted the FBI was involved. Didn't he say 23 people indirectly or directly were involved? And it was then 26. That's a lot of people. Now we got to take care of these people have been treated so badly. It's never happened before. What happened in Seattle where they took over a big portion of the city? What happened in Portland where they burn down the city every day and people die? Nothing happened to anybody. But they go after these people violently. I mean, they're still going after brand new people. They found somebody else with a picture. There's never been anything like this. And you know, it's almost 100%. Think of this, almost 100% of the people are convicted. 100%. It's Washington, D.C. People go into a trial and they say, oh, I have a wonderful lawyer and I didn't do anything wrong.
You have Russian boats all over the
And
place.
they end up in shackles almost immediately in jail. No,
They can't maintain it.
How about everyone's friends also
Of government.
You know, I got so excited about my guest today that I forgot to tell you that my better half, my co-host, Tony Swart, is out today on a medical and doing great. She will be back with me next week. But Luke, I want to just welcome you before I start talking to the ladies. And Roger Roots is with us as well. Hi, Roger. You joined us.
Hello.
Hi.
Great to be back.
It's so good to have you. And we're so excited to have Luke back. He's out of jail. He's the dad of 8 kids. And so, Luke, can you just tell us how does it feel how are you doing? How was your experience? Welcome home.
Thank you. It feels good to be home, of course, and back with the kids and my wife. And it was, you know, surreal that it happened and it happened so quick. And I mean, we're definitely the best president of my time. And I might be biased, but I'd argue maybe the best president ever.
I agree. I agree.
He gets things done.
How did you feel listening to the president, what he had to say? Because I thought it was powerful that he really implicated the FBI in a lot of ways, and just how unfair this has been, because some people still believe that it is a true insurrection.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we, stay level-headed and let people know the truth. And then the more we do that, the more comes out, the more people will start understanding that it's definitely not an insurrection. And listening to what president says, it's like, he just hit so many things right on the head, and including what he said: we're the largest armed population in the nation. I don't think that's what our insurrections would look like. So the only person that died because of that was a citizen, and a few of them actually, from what I know. Uh, um, yeah, saying that's an insurrection, that was just that was just their narrative. That's what they needed in order to be able to go after us and prosecute in just this absurd, insane way that they were. And like, and still were up until the day he got, the day before he got into office. And you know I think it's time that we are able to speak. For 3 years I was afraid. I was afraid to talk, afraid to say anything. I wanted to, but I was so afraid because, well, I didn't want to get unjustly arrested. And I knew once you're in their clutches, you're not getting out. But and then they did. 3 years later, they come and they arrest me and stuff my children in a garage, and come with rifles drawn, like 15 of them. And yeah, just when all I had to do was give me a call, I would have gladly came. And yeah, everything they did, they went about it wrong. And but it's okay. We finally got somebody in DC that's really fighting for the people. So
Yep. Yeah,
let's
your
be
wife
loud.
Carrie told us about that morning, and just how horrendous it was, and how shocking. And she said January 6th didn't even cross her mind. She had no idea what they were doing there. So it was just,
Yeah.
it is surrealistic. We do have, I got so carried away. I didn't truly introduce each one of my wonderful guests, and I feel like they've been on the show before, but also feel just like we're all friends. And so Mary Sturgeon is Isaac's mom. She and I had met before January 6th, where we met in Helena. And Eureka McCulley is just a mom, Patrick's mom, and a mom who cared deeply. We got to hear Patrick's story. And then Carrie Hoffman, I will tell you, Carrie, we had more response from you because of the tears that you shed on this show. Just, missing your husband and what it's doing to your children. So we're just so grateful that Luke is home. And then, of course, our crusading constitutional rights attorney, Roger Roots, who's also an author, and he's run for office here in Montana. We have that in common, Roger. We're so glad to have you. You just brought so much gravitas to the show, and just really showed what has happened to these J6er hostages, is what we're going to call them. So welcome to the show. I have to start with Mary Sturgeon because she has a family party tonight, her daughter's birthday. So Mary, tell us about Isaac, how he got out, what he's doing now, and how things are going.
Well, thank you again for having me on, and it's good to see Carrie and Eureka, and wonderful to see Luke, and to hear him talking. And so Carrie and Eureka and myself and a couple of other ladies formed a text group prior to the release of our loved ones, knowing that, or hoping that, this would happen and that the president would sign the pardons we didn't know how quickly it would happen, but as the day wore on Inauguration Day, it was looking pretty good. And then he did sign later in the evening. But Carrie and I had talked on the phone, and what it ended up being is I am in Montana. I had just seen Isaac around Christmas time, and he had said, "Mom, don't come back. We don't know for sure if you have to wait for a week, if I have to take off work for the release." I wanted to be there with him, but Carrie graciously said she was hopefully going to drive up from Kentucky to Ohio, where our guys were, and pick them up. And she was willing to pick up all of the inmates that were released on that night. And so she did that. I think they were released, I don't know with the time change, the time zones around 1 a.m., but Isaac called me on Carrie's phone and he was quiet but happy. And he said, "I'm out. I'm free. I thank the Lord." He said,
Don't
"God
get me
is really good
started.
to me."
Oh,
Sorry.
I know. I'm with you. I'm sitting here like this. I should have had a Kleenex for you. That's so.
Well, things have been so busy. I had on Monday, at one point, I had over 300 texts and calls coming in, and because of people who care and are praying. And then the next day, it was more of the same. So all week, I think this is the first time I've cried a couple of times, but more even today, just because he's coming home and he's a free man. And so he talked to me briefly, and then Carrie took all the guys to the motel, and I believe that the prison provided a room for them. And Carrie was going to, but she can clarify that. So she sent a picture of all of the guys in the motel lobby. It was awesome. They just look so happy.
I think Jim has that picture. Jim, could you put that picture up? Do you have it? Oh, it didn't come. I'm sorry. I sent him the picture, and I guess our internet isn't doing too well. So we'll have to do that on another show. I'd love to have all the guys, back. And so, Carrie, when you went to pick them up, first of all, who had all 8 kids?
I had to call in some help, but my father-in-law and one of my older daughters actually stayed and kept the kids. I have 2 adult daughters, so.
Yeah. So what was that like for you?
You talking about the drive up there?
Everything. Just how finding out that your husband was going to come home, that you got to go get him. What was it like?
Well, I was driving up there completely on faith at that point, because nobody knew what was happening.
Oh, you didn't know if Luke would be released that night?
Oh, no, I didn't know. I mean, I drove up there, like I said, on faith that it's going to happen. I had, like tossed around the idea of like, oh, maybe I should wait until we hear for sure. And I was like, I was talking with Mary, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go, because I just felt my heart so strongly that it was going to happen. And well, you know how it is when tossing things back and forth. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I just took off and, drove up there. And I was listening to the inauguration, and people were calling and texting me, and I'm like, I'm trying to hear what he's saying. Like, never have I really ever cared as much about inauguration as I have this time. And I basically drove up there holding my breath the entire time, because
How long of a drive was it for you?
It took me close to 7 hours to get up there.
That's a long time to hold your breath.
Yeah. Half breaths.
Yeah, half breaths.
Half breaths.
So then what did you do when you got there?
I sat in the hotel room, and at one point in time, after he said that he was releasing people, I started harassing the prison. Mary can attest to that.
Very good.
Because they were playing funny games, and when the president sends an order and it says it should be done immediately, and they kept saying, we don't have it, and another mother was up there And she called and they said, "Oh, JD Vance called." And he said, "Only the nonviolent people are being released." So I then took it to X. And well, then they also had their way with calling everybody. They were calling and faxing and calling the main numbers. And eventually Mary got a hold of somebody who was actually trying to do their job.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
and then I don't remember what time it was. It was probably about 11:30, and they called and said, Hoffman will be ready in 30 minutes. And I said, "Well, I need to pick up A, B, C, and D." And, because I knew for sure that there was people that I needed to pick up because Luke had spoken with a couple of the gentlemen in there and they already had plans. But, I knew for sure I was picking up this lot of people. So if they got out, I think right about 1:30 or something like that morning.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a long evening, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I
Uh,
I don't think we went to sleep till like 6 o'clock in the morning because I was hearing about
yeah.
all the adventures in the prison there, which
Did you guys
wow.
all hang out together, or was it just you and Luke hearing the adventures, or how did that happen?
No, we all hung out together for a while,
Mhm.
and because I was the only person that had a phone, so I just kind of like passed my phone all around and around and around until everybody had contacted who they needed to.
Yeah. You're a
And
good
then,
woman. You are a
oh,
very
thank
good
you.
woman. Yes.
Thank you. I'm just glad that they're all free. It breaks my heart to hear what, just we are the lucky ones, I guess, if you could say lucky, because, they didn't come until 2.5 years later. And,
Mhm.
he wasn't in prison for a super long time, but long enough. And, they destroyed everything that we've worked so hard for. But we're
Yeah.
still considered to be the lucky ones because, we haven't lost everything like a lot of people have. And I pray there's some type of,
It'll be very interesting to see what Roger has to say because I've been doing a lot of research on some of them that aren't getting out or being dropped off at remote places without a cell phone, without an ID, without money.
Roger's dropped off. We're trying to get him back.
Oh, Roger's dropped off. Well, thank the Lord. They're home now. How about you, Eureka? How did you? When did you first
Well,
find out you were going to get your son back?
we hope, but we never counted on it.
Mhm.
And then, well, it was 8:05 or whatever when the White House executive order came through. And then, we kept reading it to make sure it was really true, on different websites. And then Patrick called me at 9 and said, "What is happening?" And I said, "You're going to get out." He's like, "Really? Are you sure? Can you read it
Wait,
to me?"
he called you and you told him he was going to get out?
Yeah, because he had asked the CO to read it to him, but the CO read only the first part of the commutations. He read only A. He didn't read B. So he thought it was just the commutation. And I said, no, everybody who was on that day in that area is pardoned of anything. He's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm sure." So yeah, that was, and then I texted his dad, say, "He better go to Ohio and pick up your son." So yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we didn't know. It was the longest 9 minutes of my life. He had said 9 minutes and I counted on it. Yeah, it was more like 9 hours. So yeah.
like 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like 9 years. Yes. I got a lot of cleaning done. So yeah, but so it no, I was just yeah, and it's sort of, I mean, we had hoped, but we weren't really prepared. I
Yeah.
mean, his vehicle is not running, and he has no cell phone, and the basics that people have these days. And I'm just, we're sort of catching up this week.
Well, here's Roger back with us. Hi, Roger. You're back.
Hello, I'm glad to be back. I'm traveling, and so I had to go from the Best Buy Wi-Fi to the Walmart Wi-Fi.
Okay. All righty. Well, here you are. We were just talking about how the women found out, and each one is a little bit different. But Eureka just said she's the one that told her own son that he was getting out. But Carrie said they were the lucky ones, if you could call them lucky, because they did get out, and so many haven't gotten out, and so many have been treated so poorly and dropped off in places where they don't know even anyone in the middle of farmlands. Tell us what you see.
Well, of course, I had 10 January 6th clients in prison, and they're all out right now. They're all out. I believe there might be one that's not, and maybe it's Daryl Neely. I'm told he'll be out tomorrow.
That is fantastic. I was wondering because you represented 20 J6ers, right? At some point.
Yeah, my firm, myself, and John Pierce, we probably had more than 30. And of course, they didn't all go to trial, and some of them we took over on the appeal stage. But the ones that we went to trial with, we know very well. You know, you get to know someone very, very well when you're doing a trial.
Yeah.
And every single one of them are fantastic people. And I'm actually in a car with a January 6th dad.
Oh, we got to meet him. Before we do, though, Mary's got to go. She's got a party. I wanted to say goodbye. Mary, I just cannot tell you how happy I am, how thrilled I am, how much I look forward to meeting your son, Isaac, and enjoy. Please, please, we'll have you back on for the longer version. I'm sorry we had to cut short with you. But thank you, Mary, for all that you've done for all the J6ers. And you've been a wonderful representative.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for having us. And I just love Eureka and Carrie, and thank you, Roger. Thank you so much. Yes, we'll talk again. I look forward to it.
Have a great birthday party. Thanks, Mary. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Roger, introduce us to who's sitting in your car with you. Who do you have with you?
Oh, this is Al Baez.
Hi, Al.
And he's a January.
Hi.
He's a J6 dad. His daughter, Stephanie Baez, was prosecuted. And like so many others, she was charged initially with just misdemeanors, the 4 standard misdemeanors, you know, entering and remaining in a restricted area and disorderly conduct and all of that. And she, you know, we filed motions, and, you know, the pretrial process took probably 2 years in pretrial. All right. And then right before trial, on misdemeanors, guess what the government did? They superseded her with a superseding indictment and charged her with a 20-year felony, which was the obstruction of an official proceeding felony, that 1512 charge. And they did it right before she was scheduled to begin her misdemeanor trial. And they've done this in, I think, 20 cases. We've documented 20 cases.
How did they do? What basis did they do that on? How?
Good question. There was no new evidence, nothing, nothing new that they didn't already have.
Out of the blue, they made it up.
They did it purely to be vindictive and to retaliate against her for exercising her constitutional rights.
Al, as a father, that must have you were probably ready to, it just sounds terrible. How did you handle it?
We prayed a lot, and we had the best lawyer available, which was Roger. And I went to court every day with Roger, and he hit a home run with bases loaded.
So what's your daughter's name?
Stephanie Baez.
Stephanie, did she serve any time?
None at all. She doesn't even have a parking ticket. She has a clean record. She wouldn't break a window, riot, or anything.
So, but she spent no time for the January 6th thing.
No time at all.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is so good. Way to go, Roger. Way to go.
Yeah, well, I could even explain a little bit how that played out. So she was charged with the misdemeanors. We were in front of the one judge, ironically, I'll just say this, probably the fairest judge in the District of DC, and he's a senior judge, probably in his 80s, I think. His name is Paul Friedman. He's in his 80s. He's very liberal, old judge from the 60s and 70s. All right, but a true liberal. In other words, a liberal from the night in the past sense of that word.
Ones that we used to get along with when we could have actual conversations with.
Yeah, and I would just say he was probably the fairest judge of them all in DC. There aren't many. All right. But anyway, so he decided, he sort of pressured the government, like, explain yourself. And then he finally said, okay, well, why don't we, he suggested that we get rid of the misdemeanors. So she did plead guilty to the 4 misdemeanors, and the government would not drop the 1512 charge. That's that 20-year felony. All right. Now keep in mind, so she's not been pardoned on the misdemeanors, of course, obviously. But here's how it played out. The Fisher case before the U.S. Supreme Court. You probably know about this. The Supreme Court struck down that statute as applicable to riots. They said that statute is not designed for rioting or demonstrating. It was a statute that was designed, it's called obstruction of an official proceeding, and it is designed by Congress to apply to fabricating evidence, doctoring evidence, destroying evidence, maybe bribing officials. In other words, obstructing an official proceeding by tampering with the evidence in some way. And that was the obvious purpose of Congress when they wrote that serious felony charge. It was not supposed to apply to riots, to demonstrators who demonstrate or have commit a misdemeanor disorderly conduct, which delays an official proceeding for 6 hours. You know, that's all it was a 6-hour delay. All this was over nothing but a 6-hour delay. You know, construction sites have 6-hour delays because it's raining too much. I mean, we're talking, this is how preposterous this was. Anyways, so the Fisher case that went to the Supreme Court, they struck down that statute, and they said it only applies to cases where the person is obstructing the official proceeding by messing with the evidence. Okay. So at that time, over 100 1512 convictions were dismissed, but they would not dismiss Stephanie Baez's charge. They said, well, there's evidence that she was aiming for the evidence, and there was nothing. It was nothing but she had posted on Instagram a couple times about the ballot certificates. So she had merely mentioned the ballot certificates, and on that basis alone, the prosecutors would not drop her 1512 charge, a 20-year felony, obstruction of an official proceeding, just because she mentioned the word ballot certificates twice. All right. So, you know, we were forced to go to trial on that felony, and that was back in December. And let's put it this way. Judge Paul Friedman, he heard the government's case. He considered all the evidence, and he ruled that the government had failed to prove its case, and the judge just acquitted her of that charge.
Praise
that
God.
was about 4 days before the president's pardon.
Wow.
So about 4 days before the president pardoned her and everybody, Judge Paul Friedman actually acquitted her of that charge.
That is so good. I want to get back to you, but I have Carrie here with 8 children and a husband waiting for her. So Carrie, I'd like to hear how it was when your kids got to see their dad.
Oh, we had just gotten like a foot of snow, and they all came running out barefoot in their pajamas. They were so excited. My 2 oldest, well, they're not my 2 oldest, but like the 2 oldest of the younger batch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knew that's where I went, but my little ones had no idea. They were just screeching and crying, you know, screeching with excitement, you know, because Daddy was finally home, because they thought he was at work.
They thought he was at work. Well, he was working.
Yeah,
he was working for the American people, and I hope a lot of good comes from this and exposing evil. That's what I hope.
I surely hope so. Yeah, they're 3 and 5, so they don't really fully grasp. They just every day would ask me where their dad was, and you know, what do you tell them?
So as you move forward, what does it look like for you? Because you had a business, you've lost a lot of clients. I mean, people have actually taken this seriously and been against your dear husband Luke and your family. What does it look like moving forward?
You know, I really don't know. I mean, all we can do is just, you know, try to pick the pieces back up, and you know, work hard to try to, you know, bring our life back together. Like I said, you know, in the course of a year and a half, they pretty much destroyed everything that we worked for, and you know, and they ruined our reputation. So that makes it hard, but you know, we have faith that we're gonna pull through, and if we're meant to be here, we are, and if we're not, we'll move on, and you know, things will work out.
Good. Well, you're welcome to stay, but I don't want you to feel any obligation to stay. Do you have anything that you'd like to say before you get back to your beautiful family?
You know, I know it's probably a long shot, but if President Trump was somehow able to see this, I would just like to say, you know, thank you. I'm glad that he knows that what has happened to our families is not okay, and you know, and that he stood up for us. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, you guys, you know, Mary, Eureka, you, really the whole J6 community has just been amazing. I just met such a great network of people through this terrible ordeal, and I'm just so appreciative.
You know, I'm praying for restitution, that you guys get paid back for what the government did to you. I know our president was in North Carolina today he is going to fix what FEMA and the Biden administration should have been doing 4 months ago when the flood hit. And I'm praying the same thing for our J6 prisoners, our J6, you know, that were put so unjustly, that you do get some restitution. And you're in my prayers. And I know we'll stay in touch, because we're going to get Luke on this show and get you two together if somebody else can babysit.
Well, I don't know if you hear the madhouse going on in the other room right now. It's WrestleMania with the toddlers.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Well, stay on if you'd like, but don't feel any obligation. And thank you so much, Carrie. Meeting you has been just an absolute delight. I think you're a brave woman, and God bless your family and your children and your marriage and your business, all of it.
Thank you so much. God bless you. And I appreciate you guys all so very much.
All right, Carrie.
All right. You have a great night.
Great. Thank you. So Eureka, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to get back to Roger to talk about what's happening now with some of the prisoners. Eureka, how do you feel things are going to go forward for you and Patrick?
Well, you know, of course, we hope to come back to some sort of normal, but sort of we're missing 4 years. I mean, Patrick was arrested in 21, in January of 21. So we are one of the longest in this, you know, and it has been a terrible 4 years, you know, and he was very young, 23. So he lost 4 years of making money, finding a career, finding himself, and, you know, sort of, yeah, I don't think it's a setback per se, but it's a really late start, you know, and I would like to move out where we are right now, because with our name in the small town, we're just too known. I want to break away and hopefully get us somewhere where nobody knows our name.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, yeah. I mean, and this, you know, luckily in a way that there were so many of them, it wasn't particularly focused on Patrick like in the beginning. You know, there's no press in front of my house. We haven't gotten any nasty phone calls or letters or anything. But, you know, they copy and paste into articles things that didn't happen with Patrick. He did not assault and savagely beat a cop. But because it was in one article 2 years ago, that just copy and pasted back in. And I'm just, you know, I don't know how to fix it. And I get upset each time. So I just need to distance myself from the whole thing at this point.
How long altogether did Patrick serve as a hostage?
He was in 2 years, 9 months.
2 years, 9 months.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, you know, I think, and it's so funny. I mean, it's things you don't think about. He, the first morning, after he slept here, he came in and said, "The house is really small." I said, "What do you mean?" I mean, I have a small house, let's face it. But he said, "The hallways, I can touch both sides really easily." You know, I mean, he's used to these institutional, everything is big and everything is loud and everything is cement, and having the freedom just to go outside. And he said the first night he went outside and looked at the stars, because they can't see stars, it's so bright in the yard.
Wow.
And so just everything, you know, in a way he experiences everything for the first time again, or enjoys or creates the experiences again. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, restitution is nice, but the time we can't get back, you know, and the stress levels and the worries and feeling so helpless. We're just, They just did whatever they wanted to do. And the exaggeration of it, yes, maybe my son impeded an officer, but 7.5 years, it just seems the dimension. Yeah.
Well, in the position he was in that tunnel too, it was hard not to impede anybody because you're getting thrown around.
He impeded himself. Yes, but he put himself in that position. I can see he wandered in and he did all, but just like at some point, it's the hysteria of the event. I mean, Colin, and you can see if somebody calls it a riot, a protest, or an insurrection, what angle they're coming from, right? Yeah. And Patrick had the obstructions charge, and the judge just said, "Oh yes, you wanted to obstruct them." He didn't even get into the building,
Yeah.
So that was,
when you look at it, I put myself in that position as well, just being there. And then I had posted, our pastor wrote to us at one point and said, "Why did you go?" And I said, "Because we're at war for our country." This was before anything. This was the day before January 6th. And I was worried about that comment, and people got very offended about it. I didn't mean real, war with guns. I meant we're fighting for our country. And I was kind of worried that I put myself in that position.
Yes, isn't it like neighbor turning on neighbor and everybody reports on each other? I mean, my son was turned in by friends, I mean, it would have been nice for somebody to say, "They're looking for you, go," so anyways,
Well, I did not hear that on the last time we spoke with you, Eureka. I didn't realize he was turned in by friends. It's
a betrayal.
Painful.
I mean,
it's a betrayal.
I think betrayal in many areas. Like I exercised my rights to protest.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you are also in my prayers. Stay with us if you can. I think Roger will have some stuff. Roger, I was listening to the WorldNet Daily, a reporter, Alicia Pow, I believe it is, or Poe, and she was talking about all the prisoners that aren't getting out or that are being so unfairly treated that got moved right before, maybe a few days before the president made his pardons. So they got moved to an area they don't even know about. Do you know what's going on in that area and what we can do?
Well, I know there are a small number of J6ers who are being held in there for concocted reasons, and some for reasons that are a little bit technical. So it can happen where someone has other charges, they call them a detainer. So if an inmate has a detainer from another jurisdiction, let's say, and by the way, we've dealt with people in the January 6th community who've had these kind of situations where they simultaneously are charged by a state, the state of whatever, the state of Texas, and so they're facing a state charge somewhere, or it could be another federal court somewhere. And so there are a small number of J6ers who are still locked up. They have not been released. And it's because, at least they say, it's because they have detainers and they're facing a charge somewhere else, or they might even already be sentenced for a charge, some other charge. So I think that's what's going on in many cases.
Have you heard reports of not feeding hostages and having it so cold, like in the 50 degree level, and just really torturing people even now, even since the pardon? That was another thing that this reporter reported. So I don't know if it's true or not.
I have heard those reports. We address them, when we hear about that. Sometimes, by the way, the ones that were held in DC, in the jail in DC, we know were deliberately kept because the mayor was trying to obstruct Trump's pardons. And so there was a couple dozen guys, and the authorities there in DC were deliberately not releasing them, sometimes concocting reasons, saying that they had a child support order from some state or something. And then when that state was called, the state said, "No, well, yeah, we might have a child support order, but we don't want them detained in jail for it," and stuff like that. So they were just concocting reasons to keep them. And we know the DC jail was deliberately mistreating people all over the place.
I heard there's crowds outside that jail in DC just really chanting and really fighting to get their loved ones out. And there's just been a lot of back and forth that way. The guy that reported to the World Net Daily, his name's Zachary Allen, and he said that they released him out of an Oklahoma prison and that he was transferred last week. But and this is a quote, he said, "I'm in the middle of nowhere in rural farmland in Oklahoma." And then he said, "They moved me here last week for no apparent reason." And then he said, "I don't have any ID, I have no food, and I have no money, and I don't have a cell phone." And he believes that there was 3 other J6 hostages that were going to also be treated the same way. He was released, so he wasn't sure where they released those other hostages that were with him. So those were some of the things that were reported from this guy just asking for help. And he was a former medical student before all this happened.
Wow. Yeah, and by the way, that place in Oklahoma is getting a lot of J6ers because the system does not have any other place to place them, and the regional jails are throwing them out essentially because there's no longer a reason for example, the guys in the DC jail were just thrown out because the DC jail said, well, they've been pardoned with the federal case, and there might be these so-called detainers. So they were shipped out to Oklahoma, and they're sitting in Oklahoma, which is a federal prison sort of distribution hub, I guess, waiting on, supposedly their next step or to be shipped to another place, but another place might not have a bed for them or whatever. And I mean, so they're just sitting there in a holding facility, just waiting.
So Jake Lang, who was also a J6er, but he's the one that created the J6 organization, that to help the incarcerated. Do you know who he is?
I do. I've talked to him on the phone several times.
Yeah, he was just saying that the guards were giving J6ers a super hard time, refusing to let him go despite Trump's executive orders. And I guess Charlie Kirk got involved and said, if you are a J6 family member, which I don't know if you were on our call at that point, Roger, but Mary had to do this. He said, you've got to go and fight, and you've got to make a lot of stink over it and call your representatives. And Elon Musk said he call him to, actually to bring the actual paperwork to the jail of Trump's executive order. And so they said, don't give up. And then it also said that to encourage people to make everything known, so they won't be hidden, because people have to be responsible for what they're doing to our J6ers.
Yeah. I should warn you, my laptop is dying, so it might die during this show. But yeah, it is inexcusable what has happened. I will just say I echo what was said by the wife and Luke there. It is Trump came through, and he came through strong. And I'm a libertarian. I'm a Libertarian Party activist and a Libertarian candidate. So I was never a Trump supporter. I never voted for Trump, but he came through so strong, and I think it just needs to be. He deserves all the praise we can give him, because he's much different than he was in his first term. He's been in office for 3 days, maybe 4, and he's almost libertarian. He's done so many great things for liberty. I've come around to thinking he's actually from his 4 days.
I think we lost you. I think we're losing you. Can you hear us?
Okay. All right. Well, I might be losing power.
Okay. We had a show. Our last show, we gave a list of all that Trump has done just in the last 3 days at that point, and it is absolutely amazing what he is doing. He was in Davos basically telling them, we are not going along with this globalist stuff. It's America first. And then being in North Carolina and but to release the J6ers is my absolute favorite. It's my heartbeat. It's what I want to see happen. But I'm very impressed with our president, and I hope it will change you to vote for, because I love libertarians. I just they don't seem to be able to win yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, let me just say, if I'm still able to get my voice out, He also pardoned a great guy named Ross Ulbricht, who was wrongly convicted. He's been in there for 10 years for crimes he didn't commit. And Trump also has ordered the release of the JFK assassination files. And, you know, he got out of the Paris climate
accord
scam agreement.
scam.
So,
and the Green Deal. He's gotten us out of that as well. And Martin Luther King, he's going to have that uncovered. It's just been amazing what he's done. I think they've planned this for a long time, and he just hit the ground running. And God is giving him supernatural ability, because no human should be able to do what he's accomplishing. Do you have some closing thoughts in case your computer fails you?
I think what has educated Trump is the fact that he himself was wrongly prosecuted, and he himself looked at the charges and the baseless accusations that were concocted against him, and then there's no greater person who is more aware of these false prosecutions than a president who himself was falsely prosecuted, with some of the same charges. You know, he was also charged with that fake 1512 charge.
That's right. And didn't he get 600 years, or they were trying to get him for 600 years or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a divine thing that God allowed him to go through all this. And we shared a prophecy of a guy named Kim Clement, who prophesied in 2007 that Trump would have 2 terms. That's back when nobody ever thought Trump could ever become president. But he also said in his prophecy, they'd say impeach, impeach. And after he, I think he won in 2020, but when obviously it was stolen.
Yeah.
I knew he'd get back in, because I everything else that prophecy said from Kim Clement, I was not surprised, and it's a prophet. See if it comes true. So it was great, and I think God bless America and God bless our president.
Trump is alone with just, I believe, Franklin Delano Roosevelt for winning 3 elections. He won 3 elections.
That's right.
And think about that.
That's right. Well, thank you, Roger. I don't know how your computer's doing. If you have anything more to say to us before we get back to Eureka.
It is blinking. I will just, if you want to know the latest,
yes,
the
please.
latest news is the appeals. Now the government is moving to dismiss all the appeals, and I'm doing that. I'm working on appeals full time. That's what I'm doing right now. And it's all I'm focused on is appeals. But it looks like the government is moving to dismiss all those because of the pardons. The government is saying that they are a moot because they've already been pardoned, and there's no use wasting any court resources on them. And so we're opposing the dismissals of these appeals because we have very, very important issues. I'll just tell you, we're challenging the geofence warrant. You know, there was a warrant, the largest warrant in world history, the largest search warrant ever in American history, world history, was in January 6th, where the FBI applied for a warrant to search for every cell phone number that was inside the U.S. Capitol that day. Now that you look at the U.S. Capitol, it's a square mile. It might be more than 1 square mile. The largest search, they cast a net. And of course, the Fourth Amendment says searches and seizures have to be reasonable, and they have to particularly describe the thing to be seized and the place to be searched. And basically they have to accuse one person, usually. Sometimes it's a group, but they have to have probable cause that a crime was committed and that a particular person committed the crime. Well, in January 6th, they had a search warrant that accused thousands of people of a large menu of possible crimes. So we are challenging that search warrant. And by the way, if we win that appeal is another grounds to throw out all those cases. But I should say that we may never get a decision and a ruling because the government right now is desperately trying to dismiss that appeal. That's the Lloyd Cruz case, so that it never comes to a decision.
That'll be so interesting. Do you believe that our J6ers could get restitution from our government?
Let's put it this way. I know there are things in the works, such as lawsuits. It's possible. There could be lawsuits. There might be some other, it could be political. Remember, the Congress actually gave all of the Japanese internees in the Japanese internment camps in World War II, who were U.S. citizens. They were U.S. citizens who happened to be Japanese by blood, and they were wrongly imprisoned during World War II for no reason other than their race. Anyway, so I think 40 years after that fact, it might take a while, 40 years later, Congress voted to give every one of them, I think, $1 million. So I'll just say that it could happen. It might be a political remedy. It could be in the courts. I don't know if Trump would do it by executive order. I'm not sure that'd be right. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But anyway, so there's possibilities.
I sure hope it doesn't take 40 years for Patrick and Luke and Isaac. I hope there's more help, but I'm just happy they're out. I'm happy your guys are out. Thank you for being with us, Roger. And Eureka, do you have some closing words for us before we leave?
Not really, but I just hope we all can move on somehow, and maybe reconcile a little bit, make it work again like it used to be. Yeah, I think we have to forgive too, and it's sometimes really hard to go there.
Yeah, that's really good. We do need to forgive, especially those that have lost so much, like your son, like Luke.
Well, I think there are people much worse out there than he was and is, but but to overcome it, we need to pray and forgive.
That is a great way to end our show today. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to bring shows up as we get news. Thank you so much, and God bless you guys. Have a great day.
You too. Have a good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.